Turn your shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Center. Okay, stretch it out a little. Switch. 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 Straighten the front knee. Switch. 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 Okay, center. Okay, shake it out. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, hands in your waist. Shoulder roll. Reverse. And sana. Press, release, exhale, inhale. And stop. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, hands in your waist. Shoulder roll. Oops, sorry. Reverse. And sana. Okay, palms down. Bigger circle. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Okay, shake it out. Okay, we'll go side to side. And sana. We're going to go lift. and Sana. Okay, let's do the insert needle. So we're going to go up and down. And Sana. Switch, lift, and Sana. Okay, shake it out. Leg swing. Switch. And Sana. Side to sides. Okay, switch. And Sana. Shake it out. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, hands here. Silk grilling. Switch. Okay, open and close. Switch. Center. Okay. Circular movements. Okay. Lower hoop. Shoulder height. Elbows down. Okay, lower, palms down. Extend. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay. Diagonal flying. Switch. Okay, cloud hands. Okay, palms down. Lift up. Carry tiger to the mountain. Infinity sign. Okay. Form the fist. Okay, palms together. Strum the lute. Okay, turn, draw the bow. Okay, fan to the back. Okay, raise the hand. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, we'll go through the short form or this. So I'm gonna just lower this a little bit because I think it blocks the video camera, makes it darker if it comes down. Yeah, just about there. And I'll do this one. So it's not in your eyes too. Is it in your eyes? I did it. Okay. What are we doing? Single whip. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Okay, so let's see what time we got. So before we do the long form, do you have any questions? Anything that you wanted to go over? Bob? No? Yeah. How do you keep your elbows up? And yeah, so relax the shoulders first, and then your shoulder will sort of hang here. It's not so much that it's lifting. So just let it go. And then the elbow, there's a position there that will just kind of support itself with the least one. Once you lift your shoulders, this is what's getting exhausted. You know, that's sort of the killer, right? That holds your shoulders up. Because in order to hold the shoulder up, the muscle has to contract. And when you sustain a position for a long period of time, it's consuming energy. So usually when something fatigues, it's because it doesn't have enough oxygen. So that's why your shoulder would get tired. But the thing is, if you're not supporting it with a lot of physical strength, then it's sustained there with less energy being used, and it can stay there for a longer period of time. So that's what happens. And then the longer you hold it, if you just stood here without even, using any strength, or try not to use any strength, eventually what will happen is that your body will figure out the wasted energy. So when you lift up, if you don't lift up from here, then you'll find the position, because it's not your elbows being out, it's really that your shoulders are up. So when you lift up, you have to kind of drop your back, and you kind of hollow a little bit. Yeah, there's a little bit of everything. So when you go like this, see, if this is pulling back, that's a little bit, it should be a little further, but your shoulders are up right now. So that's the position there. Yeah. And then,
this is a strange.
Yeah. And so hold it like that, and then lift your thumbs up, spread the palms out a little bit, so that creates, your shoulders went up again. Yeah. So you have to find that position. So when you're here, this should be kind of rounded like that. So it's not as pulled in. In fact, when you pull it in too much, then it starts to work the muscles up here. So, positions are found, and then the amount of strength is discovered. You really don't know how much. When we shift our weight and I say, well, that's 50-50, that's, just finding the balance between the two legs. But when we go to 70-40 or 70-30 or 60-40 or 80-20, it's just kind of a guess, right? So, but you always will be passing through, the 50-50 position. So that's differentiating from the solid and empty. In other words, when you're standing here and nothing's happening, that's probably your 50-50 position. But as soon as you start to go either way, there's going to be a minute shift. And that's going to change, the pressure really. It's a balance, and then it changes from one side to the other. And the pressure is weight, and the weight is sensed in the soles of your feet. So you'll see, you were standing on a couple of pressure sensors, you would feel more pressure going there, and that would be as if there's more weight going there. So, any other question? No? So your shoulders and your hips kind of work together. So if your shoulders can be a little bit rigid, your hips are probably doing the same thing. So you have to let go of your hips, so that when you sit, you don't actually tuck. You know, a lot of disciplines tuck. They tuck their hips and but what that does, it really makes you double weighted. And when you tuck, you're actually kind of rigid. You know, right? Because that cupping of the hip really makes your abs tighten. So your core gets tight. So what's the biggest conflict in movement? Tension, right? Tension's going to restrict. So if you tighten your abs, which side's going to move? You're at 50-50, no movement. Let it go, then you're free to move from side to side. So when you're in a cup position, like you're holding something, that's how you would maybe carry something, right? If you're holding something pretty heavy, and you would kind of balance it. But if you kind of go out of kilter, off to one side, that's, if it's very heavy, that's when you hurt your back generally. Because one side has to work harder than the other, and while it's working, it could tweak your back. It could throw you out a little bit. It doesn't take a whole lot. Well, straight. Yeah. Straight in a sense of stacking yourself, not straight in the self that you're forcing yourself to be rigidly. So, you could elongate your spine, then you don't feel as much weight on the soles of your feet, because and then when so because you took your weight off of the downwardness, your knees are not, so now you're stacked. Then when you let go and you release, you don't really tuck, because if you tuck, then your pelvis will start to go forward, the pelvic tuck, right? So you don't need to tuck, you just need to keep the coccyx area plumb. But if you tuck, it actually pulls it in a little bit, so then makes it feel like, so that's what you kind of, tucking is more tension. Releasing and keeping it more as a sense of verticalness here seems to be finding that balance point between where your hip is here, because your knees are bent. So when your knees are bent, if you tuck, then that kind of pulls you backwards if you really relax. If you bend your knees and you tuck, don't you feel like your weight wants to go back, right? So if your knees go forward and you release your hip, then you'll feel like you're stable, right? So that's a relaxed position. Yeah, so when you bring your knees out and you go like this and you don't tip backwards, that means you're rigid. It means you're rigid. Your body's fighting the fact that you're gonna, that's fighting the fact that you're gonna fall backwards. The reason why, just if you go like this and you tuck, your center of gravity went to the back. If you relax, you would feel that your center of gravity goes backwards. Yeah, it depends how it depends how much you let go. If you go like this, you're tucked. When you go like this, you're vertical. So between tucking and vertical, what's the difference? When you're tucking, you can't turn. When you're releasing here, then you can turn. See, so if you say, well, turning to the right and you're tucked, you really can't. You can't turn till you're here. Okay, so the same if you this applies here when you're tucked, you can't shift from right to left. Yeah. So in holding the pose, you still want to be in a position where you can shift. Because if we go like this, we're turning to find the center. So if you tuck, then you're really just doing the arms. You see what I mean? So if you want to engage the upper to the lower, you have to let go of, everything practically. Because the body has to have something to respond from and go to. In movement, that's what happens. But if you're just holding a position, like a lot of disciplines do, they're not interested in moving out of that position. They're interested in only sustaining it. So some of it is getting rid of excessiveness. Some of it is building some endurance and rigidity because those positions are rigid. So it's really, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? I don't know if that's a saying. But the thing is, when you practice a discipline, it's very specific to what you're doing. Like we say, we don't want to use strength. But if you're working with bodybuilding or weightlifting, that would be a conflict in what they're doing. Don't use strength. But we're doing something that uses the mind intent to direct the movement. So not using strength is an idea. You have to use some strength, but the idea is to use the correct amount of strength, the correct strength, and use only what's necessary. And like you go to the store, you don't bring $10,000 to go buy a $5 candy bar. That you just bring enough. So that's kind of like what we're doing. We're moving and we're shifting. You just need enough. You don't have to go beyond that. And part of that is conservation of energy. The other thing is refining and fine-tuning the mechanism that creates the action and the motion, which is using your mind intent. So the mind intent is something that's pretty hard to describe because, when you say, I'm going to do this, it just happens. You just do it. How does that happen? When anything that you do throughout the day, it just happens. We don't really think about it. But because of the experiences we've had over the years, you kind of know it. You're not going to pick up a cup and then do this. Sometimes that happens. But the thing is, when you lift and you put it down, to be gentle, otherwise, you'd break a whole lot of glasses if every time you put your cup down or glass down and slammed it down. So these are learned experiences. And when we do Tai Chi, it's a learned experience. Yeah. So anyways, we'll go through the short form. Oh, did we do that already? Okay. All right. Ready? Preparation? Grasp the sparrow's tail. Cloud hands. Downward posture. Snake sticks out tongue. Pull down. Step up. Golden cockerel. Kick and poke. Golden cockerel opposite side. Repulse the monkey. Second, repulse the monkey. Right side neutral, lower hoop. Carry tiger to the mountain. Hold the ball. Shift, step up. Press forward. Press down. Lift up. Bend down. Circle around, stork claps wings. Toe heel pivot. Brush knee one time. Insert needle, sit back. Lift the knee, lift the fingertip. Up and down. Step forward. Fan through the back. Turn. Stroke down. Parry and punch. Step forward. Form the fist. Sit back, divert, block, and punch. Step up. Grasp the sparrow's tail. Single whip. Third set of cloud hands. Shift. Shift. Turn to your right. Turn to your left. Right. Turn to your right. 1, 2, 3. Step out. Shift over. 1, 2, 3. Back to single whip. Lower hoop, center line. Reverse the ball, palm strikes face. Single lotus kick. Left side brush knee and push. Going forward. Toe out. Step up, punch down to crotch. Step up, grasp the sparrow's tail. Going back, going forward. Hook your wrist, sink your elbow, turn. Open the stance, single whip. Second downward posture. Cover. Thrust. 1. Pull down. Shift forward. 7 star. Sit back. Hold the hands and turn. Retreat. Step up. Ride the tiger. Left palm strikes face. Turn, change the palms. Double lotus. Draw bow. Shoot tiger. Step up. Second palm strikes face. Turn. Parry and punch. Step up. Set it up. High pat the horse. Step up, left and right side neutral, right side grasp the sparrow's tail. Hook your wrist, closing for the form. Reverse the ball, diagonal flying, right side. Palms out, fingertips pointing, elbow to the right, elbow down. Okay, deep breathing. So, you know, when we're learning and we've memorized the form, it's all pure memory. That's all it is. When we're memorizing names, we're memorizing orders, sequences, and identifying postures. Then as you evolve, you know, what evolves is your understanding is one thing, but then the integration of the body evolves. So all the things that we're doing is just trying to put the parts of our body in the right place. That's all we're trying to do. Through the geometry of position, your center line, your shoulder height position, your eye level position, the waist level, your sternum. So that's referencing hand movements to body, referencing areas. So then we have, say, the mapping when we're standing is part of all this is proprioception. Standing here, you know, in this space, we have 45 degrees on each side and a center line. So that's those three. We turn over here. There's a center line. Those 45 degrees. We turn here. That center line, those 45 degrees. Then we're to this side, center line, those 45 degrees. So those are the four sides. Now the four corners, if I go to this point, there's the center line, there's the two corners. I turn here, there's the center line, there's those two corners. I turn over to here, center line, those two corners. And so we're referencing those directions, and then the 45-degree line is a reference to the corners, which is like referencing eye level, nose level. So what happens is your body goes through this, you know, this learning process, knowing space, you know, part of, you know, the proprioception that they talk about. Well, it's defined as, you know, knowing where your body is in space, kind of, right? So sixth sense sort of reference like that sometimes. But what's in memorizing is joint angle positions and speed of movement, and all that is really an understanding. So when your brain starts to recognize and understand what you're telling it to do, your body starts to listen. So I call it body intelligence. And, you know, intelligence is one of those things that you use as a reference, that it's smarter. Your body gets smarter because it starts to know a lot more things that it didn't know before. How to move, the right and the left, how to integrate the body, how to make the legs work with the arms, how to tie the torso into those movements. Now, when we sit in this basic empty stance, which is this, right? That's just this 45-degree position in your center line. If I shift my weight to here and I shift my weight to here, what you have is the spine moving from side to side. So it can't do that if the hips are rigid. The limit of the movement really comes, or that's now it becomes range of motion, right? The range of motion is limited. A couple of things kind of interfere with range of motion. Tightness of muscles and muscles that don't cooperate by releasing. The other thing that limits range of motion is pain, right? Pain will limit range of motion because as soon as the nerve is pinched, you stop. So what is affected when you have either pain or lack of range of motion? your proprioception. So every joint has this in it. Every joint has it because there's sensors in there that tell you where that joint position is. And that's pretty minute, because if you go into the ankle and you kind of shift a little bit, how do you know how much it is? It's not inches, it's like even millimeters. It's very small motion will cause discomfort or a lack of alignment. Then flexibility, we have tendons and ligaments, right? So the muscle has to relax, but then what doesn't give is also the tendons and ligaments. Your tendons and ligaments have to be part of that, because that's what's actually pulling that bone to the position it's supposed to be in. And, so those are affected by that tension. So we're in the stance and we step out. So it's about 2.5 inches or just outside of the heel. It shouldn't be in line with the heel, because that's sort of a conflict in direction. If we're sitting here, we should be able to go straight back, right? Now, in this position, now some people have wider stances, some styles. That's a stylistic thing. But the thing is, for natural motion, when we're here, that's where you would pass through. And your leg is actually most freed like this. Now that's free like this because we shifted over like this and our knee is slightly bent to give us that stability. But at the same time, your spine, the lower part of your spine, is lined up with your heel. Okay? Now, that's a position that you turn off of. So if you start to go through your form, or you just went through, say, a half a dozen movements, and you bring your consciousness to where your spine is in relationship to your heel, you'll discover that there's an alignment there every time you want to make a turn. So you always want to make your turns when you're in this vertical position. You're either going into this position or out of that position to make your next transition. So that's what a right-left turn is. So just say, for instance, we start off in a shoulder width stance and we shift, we pull the heel in. We bring our heel, bring the weight across, and now there's your first alignment of the tail and the heel, right? Then you step out. We go to neutral position, we go forward. There's a transition because this extends, and you're looking for the front knee lining up with the toe. Okay, your body will stay between those 2 points, but the tailbone is just plumb in some instances and a little bit leaning in some instances, but mainly that's your transition. When you come back and I turn like this, my tailbone should be here. When I lean forward, my tailbone is in between the feet until I turn like this. Then when I come in to this position, my tailbone goes to the heel of this supporting foot and I go forward. If I was doing grasp the sparrow's tail, I would drop my elbow. I'm still in my alignment with the heel. I come forward and press, and then if I turn, I'm aligning my body to go to the back position. Okay, and then it comes around. Now I'm in that tailbone position is where I make the turn. And then I come forward, and then I turn this way. I hook my wrist, and I shift my weight till my tailbone is over that heel, and then I open, and then we go to the 50-50 stance, passing to one side and then back into the other. There's a float, and you find your center. So your movements, are always tracking that. So while we're looking at our hands and we say, okay, it lines up with the eyes, it lines up with the shoulders, it lines up in the 45 degrees, it goes to the center line. What happens below? The same thing's happening, but it's slightly different in what it's mapping out to be and slightly different in what's looking to be aligned. So there's a consistency of the vertical spine and the back heel. So once your spine is in the back heel, then you can spin freely to turn. Now when you turn freely from right to left, your lower half has to adjust and compensate for the vertical position. So that means this muscle is moving. So the difference between just supporting your weight, which is what these do, they just support your weight, so you can stand and you can, walk or whatever. You're in this vertical position. That's all it does, weight bearing. That's all it does, support your weight. When you shift your weight, it becomes more of a weight bearing because now you put more weight on each side. But when we're in this position and we shift, and now it becomes weight bearing, because we're turning and adjusting, then the thigh bone or the thigh muscles are not like this. They're like this. They're moving. They're moving because you wouldn't be able to adjust your hip joint or your knee joint or your ankle joint if the muscular wasn't adapting to the position. When it doesn't adapt to the position, there's resistance. So if you have resistance in the musculature that wants to not allow the joint to do that when it's supposed to do that, then you're going to cause misalignment and problems in those joints. Most people can't control that, so there's a lot of joint problems in the lower half of the body. The hips, the knees, usually the biggest problems, because it's always bearing weight. If it's always bearing weight and you're not moving correctly, what's going to happen? You're going to either put wear and tear excessively on the joints, just like your car is when you're driving it, for a long time misaligned. Something takes toll, right? Your tires don't wear right, the joint wears out on one side and then whatever, and then you have to get a new joint or new tires. So we do the same thing. We go get a new knee, go get a new hip, go buy a new pair of shoes. Those are the things that wear. So you can just see, when I draw that analogy, how the body is affected by not knowing. So to know what I'm talking about, you have to go through the process and do it, because the body and the brain doesn't really